Hello and welcome to Merlin Reviews. Today we shall be discussing one of the main antagonists of Bleach, Yhwach, or Yhwach. I'm not entirely sure how that's pronounced. Better known by his followers simply as Almighty, and I'll primarily be referring to him as such throughout the course of this analysis. He is the ruler of the once thought extinct Quincy's, ruling over Hueco Mundo after the fall of Aizen's Espada forces. It turns out his existence was kept secret due to being dormant for centuries. This was really sort of a hibernation to increase his power over time, ultimately to move against the Soul Society in an all-out war. Starting out at the opposite end of the spectrum, though, the Quincy King was born devoid of any physical senses and being totally immobilized. Despite this, though, as would kind of be his catchphrase later, he did not live in fear. He was still revered by his people, since being in his presence always seemed to increase their inherent abilities of those around him. This comes from his distinctive ability to share his soul with others, enhancing their inherent powers. Naturally, he can take on those new abilities, increasing his power even more, kind of like a spiritual sponge of some sort. It's not only until the ability of those people, upon their deaths, aspects of those people would be fused into his own being. This essentially makes him the living embodiment of the Quincy bloodline. Due to his healing properties, he slowly becomes deified and was worshipped as a god by his people. Though his conquest would start early, his ultimate plans were to create an army for the sole purpose of conquering the Soul Society. This is more of a personal motivation against Yamamoto specifically, having sealed him away many years before, King Piccolo style. Like many conquerors and fanatics, much like the Claw in my previous video, the Almighty believes himself to be a lover of peace and truly despises conflict. He supports this by attempting to end conflicts quickly to limit suffering. He seems to have a great deal of respect for the Soul Reapers, specifically Yamamoto, not only for their power, but for their ruthlessness in combat. He also seems deeply motivated with love for his own people, treating the Quincy's like sons and even showing himself capable of mercy in some situations. He does seem to have a severe hatred towards the Arrancar, however, eliminating them without mercy. He even does so with those who swear allegiance to him when he feels that they've fulfilled their purpose. Though he shows this disregard for the Arrancar specifically, he has the same outlook for all his subordinates, especially Quincy, who he deems impure, as the absorption of their powers leaves many of them dead. This isn't so much out of spite, but believing that their cause is just enough that many sacrifices simply come with their duties and are necessary. Since he is the embodiment of his people, individual lives may truly not seem that important in the grand scheme. My opinion on the 1,000-year Blood War arc of Bleach, and really Bleach in general, have been mixed for a long time, but I'll try to keep my personal feelings out of this, to the best of my ability. The Almighty is an interesting villain for Bleach, overall. Being a fanatical being with godlike powers and an overbearing sense of morality works fine for the moral implications of the universe. He also really serves as a way to culminate the long-standing feud between the Quincy's and the Soul Reapers, which certainly had some narrative possibilities. In and of himself, the Almighty is fine. Not groundbreaking by shonen standards, but a little different than your run-of-the-mill bad guy. The main problem with the villain and the Quincy reveal as a whole is its placement in the series. As has been stated by myself, and many others for years, Aizen was the primary villain of the series for most of its run, for better or worse. His relationships with many of the characters were personal, giving them clear motivations to defeat him. He also had ambitions to achieve godhood, and used old enemies, the Hollows or Arrancar specifically, against the Soul Society. The point I'm trying to make here is that the purpose of the Almighty was filled by Aizen already. The decision to make Aizen a lesser villain ultimately, despite his ridiculous ability to plan everything in every conceivable sense, and then finally not kill him and end the series, makes the war with the Quincy's ultimately kind of redundant. Hence why Bleach really isn't taken that seriously anymore. Aside from all the other narrative issues that I won't get into, we've seen many of the same things already. An easy example would be Toguro being followed by Sensui in Hakusho. Though they appear different, their motivations, goals, and the structure of their arcs really aren't that different. While their example is not as extreme, it's a similar problem here. In truth, the Almighty and his arc are not inherently bad, they just came too late in the game. Having the Quincy's revealed earlier would have been a nice way to build up the threat of Aizen and his Hollow uprising. There is also the matter of his influence on Uryu. Though I never really liked his character that much, I do feel that it is also something that would have worked better in earlier arcs, when he had not already been established as building a long-standing relationship with Ichigo upon everything they've done already. It's obvious that Kubo is trying to imitate Naruto's relationship with Sasuke and attempting to end the series on a war arc, probably to boost sales, even though they already had 2 or 3 arcs revolving around a war with Aizen and the Espada. The Almighty could have been a very memorable villain, but he will most likely be a footnote next to Aizen and many other previous villains in Bleach for that matter, most of whom were basically henchmen, and that is kind of sad. Well, those are my thoughts on Yhwach. I apologize for giving in to my typical Bleach frustrations, but if you talk about Bleach with me, it usually goes that way. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave your comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you have not already. Alright everyone, stay magical.